Heidi Larson Hurley, and welcome back to another awesome edition of Exploring and Creating with Heidi. I'm just so grateful to be able to do this, to share all kinds of fun stuff with you. I want you to try things. I want you to be creative. This session, what we're going to do is talk about portraits. I know I do a lot of talking, but I hope to give you some real good basics so you can get started and try things out on your own. Portraits are difficult. Self-portraits are even more difficult. But if you learn the basics and you know what you're looking at and you know how to set things up, then it might not be so difficult for you. Remember, there are no mistakes. Have you ever seen any of Picasso's portraits? You know, the ones with the eyes and noses all over the place? Listen, don't worry about it. I want you to have fun. I want you to enjoy it. I want you to try out a lot of different things. My experience with portraits, wow. You know, I took portrait drawing when I was in college, and I remember doing self-portraits in high school, which was quite 50 years ago or whatever. But in college, it's when I started to get, have a passion for it. And I started using pastels, which allowed me to explore with color and all kinds of great smudging and everything. And then further on down the line, I took a portrait painting class. And I took that with Yon Chen, and he's on YouTube. If you can look him up, he does watercolor portraiture. And we used one brush. It was beautiful. It was such a wonderful experience, and it was very expressive and very open. And then I've also taken some, a couple of studio classes here and there. And finally, I got to sit in on Diane Panarelli Miller. She has her own studio, and she invited me, and I went to some of her portrait sittings. And I wanted to share some of that experience with you. What I did is I got to model for Diane, and Diane did the most amazing portrait of me. The idea of a portrait is to capture that person, and she did such a great job. Every time I look at it, and we'll make sure we show this on the screen, but boy, oh boy, I just absolutely love it. She captured my eyes, she captured everything. Eyes are part of the soul, so if you can capture eyes in someone, that also captures the likeness of that person or even an animal that you're trying to do a portrait of. So I wanted to make sure that you realize you're starting, you're just beginning. So how do you set yourself up? You got to give yourself a map and figure out how to make it happen. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ideas and a couple ways to get started. It might be very basic for some of you, and I'm not the best, but at least it gives you a map, a way to get started. For materials for this, really, I have a sheet of newsprint, and then I'm going to be using a couple of different materials. One of them that I'm going to be using, I have Conte crayon. And Conte crayons are, these are like chalk. They're a little bit more compressed, and they can smudge. They're fun to work with, and you can erase them. That's one tool that I'm going to be using. I also have some charcoal here, and this is just a vine charcoal. It's very smooth. It's easy to erase and smudge with. I have with me a box of portrait pastels. And these are pastels that you can buy in a set. This came from Dick Blick Studios. And there's 24. It's a hard stick, but they come in all the different type of tones for hair, for skin, for eyes. So you have a wide range to pick from here. And being the portrait artist that I am, I have a box of nondescript, beautiful, soft pastels that are my go-to. They're so dirty and dusty, but I know what they are, like my standard white and my beige is really soft. And I can also sharpen some of these points with my X-Acto knife, which is another way that I can get a really nice sharp point on some of my tools. And I have another one of those too. So for erasers, I've got a kneaded eraser. These are so much fun. And these clean themselves. They're great because you can take this eraser and I can shape it into a point or into something that I need when I need to erase away a section. And then when you work it, you're just cleaning up. I don't know where all the the dust and dirt goes, but it disappears. I like to split mine in half a little bit because I don't need the whole thing, but I can do some really fun things with that. I have something called a magic rub. There's a lot of magic words being used for these. So this is a magic rub. Magic rub erasers, it's white, it's soft, it's by Eberhard Faber. This is a regular pencil thing, but if I take an X-Acto knife, I can carve away some of the points to get a really nice sharp point if I want it. And finally, this is called General's Black Magic Eraser. It's for charcoal, graphite, and pastel. You know, I'll be really honest, I've never used one of these before, and I'm really excited to try it today because this is going to be really fun. And it's the same thing as, say, the magic rub, that I can cut it to get in tight into certain sections and go in where. The other little materials that I have to share, we did go over this at one point, but these are rubbing stumps or tortillons. These are rolled up pieces of paper that come to a point. They're great for smudging and smearing. And I can take my kneaded eraser and go on the point and get away some of the charcoal or chalk to clean it up. I have 2 graphite sticks. One is a 9B, which means it's very, very soft. You don't have to have these, but these, you might have a 9B pencil. And then I also have what's known as a 6B, so it's a little bit softer. One of these is water soluble, and I believe it's my 6B. I'm not going to be working with water, but it's really kind of fun to take this and use a paintbrush with some water and smudge and smear. The final part that I have to share with you is my very special chamois cloth. This is the thing that cleans my hands. When I'm using pastels, instead of rubbing it on my shirt or blowing dust anywhere, if I use this, it's terrific. It's wonderful. You can get chamois cloths in the car cleaning section, but you can cut them into little pieces. You can wash it out, you can clean it, and I always have one on my hand. I've had this for over 50 years, so that gives you an idea of what I've been doing with this. Had a lot of things. I've got some tape. You don't need to have that too much. Paper. For paper tonight, I have newsprint that I'm going to demonstrate and just give you the structure of what a portrait might be. So I'm going to use this newsprint paper, and I'm going to take that. And with that, I'm going to take tracing paper, and I will place that on top just to show you how I might add something. So tracing paper is always fun to put your picture underneath and make changes and, make some, maybe one eye is big or one eye is little, and then you can go over there and you can fix things up a little bit. I like to use it a lot when I'm instructing students, and I'll put a piece of tracing paper in front of that. I also have regular drawing paper. This is a Strathmore. Look how white that is. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. This is a beautiful, if you're doing a portrait of someone and you have a nice quality paper, it's a nice paper to have. And then finally on my self-portrait, I'm going to use a Strathmore colored paper. Now it's a pastel paper, and I like to use a darker paper so I can use a lighter, like whites and cream colors to bring up the highlights. It's a lot easier than using a white sheet of paper. So that's how we're going to work with that. So I wanted to just show you what I'm going to have ahead of time, so if you want to go run around your house and go get some of these papers. Mine are big only so that you can see them, but working small. When you're working on a portrait of yourself, it's probably good, especially when I'm doing the self-portrait, I want to do it life-size. If you're working from a magazine, and a lot of people like to work from photographs or magazines, you might work on a small sheet of paper. The small sheet of paper, you can work and you can compare side to side. I tend not to work from a photograph, and I'll tell you why. I think that it's flat. With a real person or a face or someone that can sit still long enough for you, you can actually see the curves a little bit better. You can make it work a little bit easier for you. So I want to make sure that you can understand that whatever you want to use is fine. I know some of you are going back to, say, elementary or middle school, what you learned, and you're going to use that. But maybe I can encourage you to try something different. Observation is key. Key. It's the key element of looking. It's not what you think that it should be. And I know the nose thing, a lot of people like to draw these noses in a particular way. I know, I've been there. I've been a teacher and I've watched, kids show me the picture. I said, does your nose really look like it? But the idea behind knowing how to build or build upon the structure of a nose might work a little bit better for you. Okay, so some of my most favorite portraits that are out there, besides Diane Panerile-Miller's picture of myself, John Singer Sargent is somebody who does amazing portraits. And one of the things that he did that was very controversial was a portrait of Madame X. And Madame X, it was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. She had this beautiful elongated nose, and it was a profile. And she's in this beautiful black dress, and she looks absolutely gorgeous. That, to me, is romantic and beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. It's a profile. It's a side view. The other one of my most favorite, and if I bring my nieces there, is by Gretchen Rogers. It's at the Museum of Fine Arts, and it's called Woman in a Fur Hat. And she's kind of turning and glancing and looking at the viewer. She's got this absolutely beautiful fur hat, the yellow stark background, and her face is in shadow. But boy, oh boy, does it when you look at it, it's just absolutely amazing. So to make a portrait come to life is really key and really important. So let's get started. Let's talk about structure. I want to just talk about the face, the different types of, like a child's portrait is going to be different than an adult, because as a child grows or is a child, their skull, everything is different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my big fat black graphite pencil, and I'm going to talk to you about the skull and the skeleton. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to draw a skeleton. So we're going to build up on top of that. So I hold my head sometimes and I go like this. So when you think about the cranium, like this big noggin that's right here, I'm just going to this is where my brain is. That's the good spot right there. That's where my brain is. My jaw and everything is going to come down here. There's a cheekbone and a jaw. So it's kind of like when I talk about a skull, you've got a jaw that's not really attached. It goes to the back of your ear. And you've got your cranium that's here. In the middle of this, so if I draw a line, it's not exactly middle, is where my eyeballs are. So here at home, nobody can see you doing this, but if you feel your eyeball, there's a big socket that's right here. So you're going to draw, I look like an alien, don't I? This is my socket. This is not my eyeballs right now. My cheekbone comes out, and it's like so. My nose is in the center of my face, and my nose is made out of cartilage. So what happens, if you feel at the top of it, you'll feel that there's a little bone that sticks up, and it's pretty much about here. And the cartilage for that is kind of like this. All right, and it falls along in here. There's a little bone also that's in here. Don't I look gorgeous? So from here, what I'm going to do is draw that jawbone. This is all skeleton right now. And then my beautiful teeth that are going to go back like so. So a lot of people will take and draw the neck like this or draw a little skinny neck like this. You know, you've got your spinal column and you've got your, you know, what are these things? Collarbone and my shoulders, and starting to work on that. But if you feel in your neck that you've got in here, you've got some cartilage that kind of brings you down and like so. So my eyeballs, this is where my eyebrows are, my cranium. Aren't I just gorgeous? All right, so you can see how this is kind of like my face that's happening here. Eyeballs go inside here. So before I start going any further, if I were to turn sideways, here's my cranium. Here's the part of my nose. Here's my jaw. It's attached here. This is the socket. Here's the thing. So this is where all the smart stuff is. Smart stuff. But this is where it is. This is where my neck goes like so. So you're going to start to build, and that's where I'd get my nose and my mouth and start to work from that. So here's the basis, the beginning part. If I take a piece of tracing paper, and I'm just going to put this on top. Hopefully you can see this okay. All right, so here's my skeleton. I'm going to take out the skeleton right now, and I'm just going to do the outline of my face. And now I'm going to work on the eyeballs. So what an eyeball looks like. So what you do, you know, I try to freak the kids out at school. It's like, okay, if I take my eye out, what does it look like? So an eye actually is circular. I don't know if anyone's ever seen some of those fake eyeballs that they have. It's circular. And that circle has another circle. And inside that little circle, everything's absolutely centered. Inside that circle is the pupil. So this is the iris, the colored part, and this is where all the veins are. And this fits into that socket. And so when I put that in the socket, there's skin that goes over it that actually, because it's, if I turn it sideways, here's my eye, here's this, it's going to stick out a little bit. Because I put it in there, it has to stick out a little bit. So when I put my eye in here, let's put the eye, I'm going to have to try to figure out where my eyebrow is, which is usually at the top of that brow. And then my iris is going to be in the middle here. And this is when you start to figure out where your eyelashes and your eyelid are. So right now I have taken and I've created the setup for this. So here's a little rule. Here to here to here to here to here. That's 5 eyes across. So your eyes are 5 eyes across. The distance between the 2 eyes are from the middle part where your tear duct is to there. All right, so I have that. And then underneath, my eyelid's going to go across here. So this is actually pretty dark that's in here. And this is where my lashes are going to come across. All right, so I have when you look in the mirror or when you look at a portrait, like I'm looking at this beautiful woman here, Elizabeth Perkins, her eyes in this picture, actually the lower lid and the upper lid overlap the eyes. So if I draw this eye, see what happens? You're going to actually overlap this. Okay, so you're going to have that. So here we go back to structure a little bit. So I've got eyes, I've got my head, I've got this going here. I've got halfway. So if I take here to the bottom of my chin and go halfway, that's about where my nose should come across. So I'm looking in the mirror, and the nose actually comes down from my tear ducts, the width of my nose. And most people, doesn't matter if they have wide set eyes or different set eyes, that's where my nose is going to come across. So when a person draws a nose, a lot of times I get this. Wait a minute. Sorry if I'm offending you. But I'll get something like that, which is, it's not bad. It's pretty close. But in all actuality, it's thinner at the top, and it works its way down. And you have nostrils that you're really not going to see very much of. And you have the flanges that are on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that, and your nose might have a little ball at the top of it. And then that brings it across here. And it stems from your eyebrow. All right? It doesn't stop here at your eye duct. It goes up to your eyebrow. Feel it, right? So if I go like this, I can feel my nose, and it goes down across. You can feel where the shadow, where the dark, where that comes across here. And I'm not dealing with shadows and highlights right now because we're not really talking about that. I'm just trying to get the basic structure. So then, when we talk about the mouth, take the pupils on both sides, and you would follow that down. And then halfway between the nose and the bottom of the chin, that's about the distance that your mouth is going to be from here to here. So what I'm going to be doing is maybe I'll just kind of draw a curved line, bottom, indicate, and top, which creates a lip. And usually the top has the shadow because it's overlooking, so I'm going to take that and go like so. That's a crazy looking chin, huh? So I can go in there. All right, so I've got the start of a face. I don't know who she is, but we're getting there, right? So I'm going to smudge, try to get some shadows in there. So once I'm doing this, see, I can't help but play. I just got to get in there. Think about hair for a minute. So hair on this, a lot of people start it up at the top, but if you look, I'm looking at me, here's my eyebrow. My hair is actually going to go back and pull its way down. So maybe I've got something that goes like so, or I've got bangs, or I've got something, but it's going to fall along the side of the face. All right? So once I have that, and I'm doing this from my imagination, everybody's working here. Get the hair. What about the ears? What about the cheekbones? What about everything that's happening here? So if I pull this away, there's my skeleton, and then I can build right on top of the skeleton. So the same thing with a profile. I might do side view on the profile and build it from there. Babies tend to have their foreheads, their heads are bigger. So when you're drawing a child, a lot of times when you're drawing a child, you might have a larger head, or you might have something that you're working with portraits. I've drawn a few kids, and it's been a lot of fun. But again, I've got my cranium, I've got this. And it's just all kind of different, like there's more forehead, their features are a little bit smaller. I've got this, the nose is going to be a little bit more cherubic, and I can just, this is from my imagination again, but the bigger cheeks, a little chubbiness, and I can start to work from there. So we've got this little baby with a big belly. But you can see how you can take it and I just moved this down a little bit from the center of the face to create a child. Okay, so we've got that. So let's do this. Let's talk about, real quickly before we jump into self-portrait, what I want to do. One of the common exercises, eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. Ears, people freak out. I gotta draw an ear. Eyes, don't worry about it. But let's do an eye. We just learned about an eye, all right? So I'm gonna focus on drawing the eye, keeping in mind that circle, right? I'm going to put my lash in because I want to build on top of that in my lower lash. And then I'm not looking at an eye. This is my circle. Here's my pupil. Simple, easy steps. And what did I just do here? I left a little bit for a highlight. That little white spot there is just a little highlight. And then I'm going to go in. I'm having so much fun. And I'm just going to draw. You see what I just did? All it was. I'm not, here's my tear duct. Here's my eyelid. Here's the foldy part. Here's this. I don't know the official words, sorry, to all the opticians that are out there. So eyelashes, instead of going straight up in the air, I'm going to go to the side and pull up. And a lot of people love to draw eyes because it's just like, as I said, the key to the soul. We've got an eye. Ooh. Flip flop it. You do it on one side, you can do it on the other side. There's a secret out there. If you have a portrait straight on, if you're looking at a photograph of somebody, it's a straight on photograph, cover one side of the face, like with a sheet of paper, and then look at the face. And then you turn it over on this side and look at that side. They look like two different people. There's supposedly the good and the bad or whatever. But all right, so we've got eyes, nose. I know, the nose. It's really hard to do. But if maybe I can add it here. But so here's my eyebrow. The eyebrow, again, it's going to come past. I'm not going to draw it in solid, even though that's what a lot of people do. So my nose is going to come from the eyebrow and come down. So I like to indicate where the nostrils are, and then I can figure out notice that they're not heavy lines. I'm just indicating. And then I can go in there with the shadow. It's a light shadow that can, you see? Watch the piece of paper start talking. So you can start working like that, right? So I've got a nose. All that was sketch, sketch, sketch. If I did it really fast, if I just make a nose, draw the two lines for the nostril. Think about where the bulb of the nose, everybody's got a little bulb on the end of their nose somehow, and then you've got the little flanges on the outside that you can spread out, and then you can work from there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 lines to create a nose, right? I don't know what this thing is called, but the little thing that's underneath your nose that comes from your nostrils, that helps to define where the points of your lips are. So if I have here's those lines, the shadow, and then my lips are going to go from one eye to the other. I'm looking at this sideways, so I don't know exactly. Here it is. Here's my lip. I'm going to just draw a simple line underneath, and then I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes people draw like little circles for the plumpness of the lips. And then we can talk about teeth if we get an opportunity. But again, the top lip might have a little bit more shadow. Here's that shadow from here that brings it across. Would it be cool if it started talking? Hello. Hello, Miss Heidi. Ears. So, ears, if I draw the face, here's the eyes, nose, mouth. The rule of thumb is that the ears are aligned with between the nose and the mouth, here, and then they actually go back. So when you have a face, sometimes you don't see the entire ear when they're looking at you. So a lot of times you just might have the edge of the ear or something like earrings, like my big gold earrings that I've got here. But the rule of thumb is I'm looking at myself in the mirror here, and it's just right with my eyebrows and going down. Some people have bigger ears that stick out or whatever, but you know, like this thing doesn't really happen, except unless it's a cartoon. Oh, hello, my name's Bozo. But you just think about where you're going to be putting parts of your mouth. Mouths, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, right? So I think I've covered all of the topics that are there. Again, hairline, if you indicate, pull up a little bit more on top of the scalp, you can kind of pull that to bring in your hairline. I like to sketch somebody first whenever I'm drawing, because what happens is it just, if you work real quickly, you can get the idea of where someone's face is. So this is just eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. One of the exercises, I was going through some of my papers tonight to go over this. One of my most favorite exercises that I did, and for an absolutely fabulous instructor at Mass Art, Ron Hayes, we had to focus on just the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. And it was a composition over and over. It just kept doing it over and over again so that you could learn the features and the different races, different everything, the different ways that a portrait is made up. And like fuller lips that someone might have, or eyes that are a little more almond shape. You know, it's observation and not doing what you think you learned when you were in elementary school. You know, like how many people said, this is an eye, and then you go like this, and then there's like a spot. It's hard because you've got to observe, you've got to look, you've got to try it out, you've got to go forward. So we've got straight on portrait. So let's talk a little bit about the different types. So one of the things that you have with a portrait is that you might have, you know, like full-on portrait that's straight on, okay? And then you might have something called a 3/4. So this way, a 3/4, this is my halfway point here, this is my halfway point here. And then the face is kind of turned this way. So it's the same structure. I might see more of this ear. Do you see how it's turned a little bit? This one's straight on. And then you finally have what's known as the profile. And the profile, I kind of indicated, you know, you've got your skull here that I'm going here. And then I'm going to have, my nose is going to stick out My eye is going to be the same thing halfway through. It's going to be sideways. And my mouth and the chin. So we got full, 3/4, and then side view. So when we start to work, I think side views are a lot of fun to work with because you can capture a real nice mood. 3/4 is the one that I told you about, Gretchen Rogers. She's looking over her shoulder. The hard part is, again, it's perspective. If this eye is closer, it's going to be bigger, and this eye is going to be just a hair bit smaller when we're working with it. And on side view, it's really about shadow, trying to capture the neck, trying to make it work. Hello, I've got 3 people. So that's what we have. So the other thing about portraits, you could have a full body portrait. We've had models, I've sat with models, we've done it, and you've got their whole body in there. So it's not a portrait when you say, I'm going to do a portrait of you, it could have your full body in there, or full, like in uniform, or there was a wonderful one that we did with Diane, and then he was dressed as a fireman. It was really terrific. You can work in all kinds of different ways. You've also got animal portraits. You've got animal portraits that people love to have a picture of Fluffy, and they're just wonderful. It's the same way. Think of the skeleton. Sorry, I don't, but if you've got your dog and you've got the snout, it's the same way you're going to set yourself up. I'm really not good at this. But hello, my name is Rover. But again, you've got to think about the structure of what the animal looks like. Hello. But, like playing with the skeleton, making sure that you have the skeleton. That's a scary dog. That's really cool. I love that. All right. I've not done any animal portraits. I've done some cute watercolors of my cat way back in the day, but they weren't very detailed. Some people make a really nice business out of doing their portraits. So we talked about the self-portrait, full body, animal, and then let's talk about from a picture. I should know who Elizabeth Perkins is. It's lovely. She's a beautiful person. She's nice. Her hair is up in the air. And if I take a quick look at this, again, I'm going to use this piece that's here. I'm going to set this up. I'm going to do it really quickly, and I'm going to look at her and look at my paper. I'm going to do it a little bit larger, but I'm going to set myself up and talk through it so that you can see how I'm doing this. Her head's at an angle. You see how her head's at an angle? She has full cheeks. And I'm thinking of her skull. poor Elizabeth. I'm thinking of her skull as it goes back. Notice right here, here to here, halfway, I'm going to draw a line. Her head's tipped slightly. It's about halfway. I'm going to go another halfway and another halfway for her mouth. At this halfway point, her eyebrow, and then if I notice in between here, this is my 5 eyeballs. 1, 2, 3, here, side of there. And there's her ear, comes down to about just below her nose. Cute ears. This one's, because she's tipped slightly, I see more of that ear. All right. Her hairline, first her hair goes above her scalp. I'm just going to do this really fast, and I'll fill it in later. Line, hair comes down. She's got a very big forehead. You see how I have the structure set up? Her nose, cute little button nose. Again, what did I draw first? I just drew the outlines of the nostrils, and then I've got a flange. Can hardly see the flange because of the shadow. This is the shadow right here that comes down that defines the nose. We've got that button. That's right there. Her mouth, she's smiling. You know, so that line between the two, she's not smiling that much, but again, lip, and the lipstick goes across. Like it's not, she doesn't have pointies, but I'm just gonna go ahead and go like so. All right. She's coming to life, right? So here, we're gonna take this, we're gonna take the eye duct. She's got beautiful eyelashes here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna not draw her eyelashes yet. I'm just gonna get her the shape. That's my shape. It's got a cheek that's there. I tend to jump around. Now, if I look at her eye, it's only going to be 3/4. I'm not putting the whole eye in. See? And again, there's that beautiful little white highlight. A little white highlight. I wonder if she's watching. Heidi, you drew me so well. Now comes the beautiful eyelashes. She's got eyeliner and eyelashes and really dark. The one thing you kind of don't want to do is draw wrinkles, but we're going to throw some wrinkles in there. She's got a thin line. Okay, so she's coming alive. She's coming alive. So we're going to take this. I'm going to play with some shadowing. A little cup of wrinkles that are going in here. Smile lines, right? They're not wrinkles. They're smile lines, beauty lines. All right, so now we can start to define. I like this because I'm looking at her comparison with her ear. It's here. And then her neck comes right about there. She's got this collar and she's got her shoulder kind of going down. And she's going to go around. All right, let's make her hair. She's not wearing earrings. So whenever I goof or go on the outside a little bit, you know, maybe I make that be the shadow in the background so I don't have to erase. Notice how messy I'm getting, but it's like bringing her to life a little bit. I'm going to step back a little bit. She's a little crooked, but that's okay because I'm working sideways. I didn't get a chance to start my self-portrait, but I think I'll do that really quickly. I've got about 5 minutes or so, and I want to share that with you. But this is how I set up that from there. I can see what's wrong. So I want to go into it and fix her forehead. Stop. All right, self-portrait. Here we go. How do you do a self-portrait? The first part, you don't move, right? The hard thing about a self-portrait, I'm setting myself up, I'm standing in front of a mirror, but when you go to draw, you have to look back and forth. So you want to set yourself up in such a way so that you're not so that you're not moving. Because every time you move, you've changed the layout or the lookout for this. I could set myself up, I think just for this purpose, maybe next time when we have another series of these, I'll get into the pastels. But for right now, let's stick with the graphite pencil because this seems to be working. So my self-portrait, I'm looking at me. I hope I do as nice as Diane. So I'm going to set myself up. I'm going to be almost 3/4. My skull. And looking at the basic things that set myself up. I've got these big honky glasses on, so what I'm going to do is just kind of indicate where the glasses are just so that I can see them. I've got a ridge line and I've got a headband here. Now I'm going to set my face. Here's my mouth. It's just about 3/4 that I'm working with. My nose. My eyes are in my glasses, and my eyebrow. So halfway through there, here's my chin, my hair, got an earring that's half here, my nose, I've got a pointy nose, little bouncy thing here. The last time I did a self-portrait of myself, I was sitting on the ground. It was pretty cool. Notice I'm just indicating where things are. I have my setup. And here's my here to here. I've got a nice dark shadow underneath my chin, my glasses, my hair goes down, eyeball, wrinkles, forehead. This is pretty much my setup. So this would be my startup. I can see that my nose needs a little bit more definition. So this is when I would pick up this. I could pick up my eraser and go into it and erase away certain parts. And I can smudge with my smudge stick. What's really fun is if you take this and I can take away some of those white lines. Oh, God, this is great. I have all day to work on this, right? So this is awesome. I think one of the things that I'm driven with this is looking at the shadows. I'm really enticed by that. I've got big nostrils. Oh, God. See, I'm turning too much, but I'm looking. There we go. I look like my dad. Woo. Yikes. There we go. All right. So it's not a finished product, but it's a great way to get started. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you all understand is that the structure, getting the structure of a portrait is key. Getting a structure is important. Taking that information and then building upon it instead of just going into it and working. I love to do cartoons because, you know, you don't have to be perfect, but when somebody does a self-portrait, nobody has to look at it. Just enjoy it. Take a few minutes, set a mirror up in front of you, and try to do it. Or ask someone to pose for you. How awesome would that be if you could get someone to pose and sit in front of you, you know, and you could do some sketches. I think I told Fred, and Fred did it. He took his sketchbook when he went and had breakfast, and he drew the people that were around him. That's how you get people, that's how you get better. You just got to practice, you got to do it. There's no goofs. I mean, I goofed really bad. Boy, that picture of that girl, whew, scary. But at least I know the basics and I know how I can fix it and work into it. I want you to have fun. That's the whole goal of this, is just to have fun. Again, if you like this, like it on, YouTube, and make sure BCAM knows about it. If you want, or if you have any suggestions and you want to do this, or you have something you want me to show you how to do, I'd be happy to do it. The pastels come next. How's that? We'll do a whole series on portrait pastels. Maybe, we'll see what happens. I can add some color while you're waiting. But this is Heidi. I want to thank you so much for watching. Make sure you have fun. Make sure you create art. Make sure you have a blast. And it was great seeing you. Please, I hope you have fun. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.